You ever have one of those days where everything seems to unravel one tiny snag, and suddenly your whole world comes apart in front of a crowd? Yeah, that was Margaret's Tuesday at Gate 23B, and trust me, it wasn't the kind of show she'd have chosen star in. Imagine this. Harsh airport lights, her phone pressed to her ear, her job disappearing faster than a baggage card on the tarmac, and 300 faces just waiting for her next move. There's something cruel about how quickly 31 years of service can get boiled down to a single decision, one she wasn't even sure was hers to make. But to see the storm brewing, you gotta roll back to sunrise when Captain James Morrison started his day like any other, suit crisp, flight bag in hand, no clue the universe was about to throw him into the middle of a lesson on prejudice, principle, and who gets to call themselves a leader. It was fall in Virginia, and the sky looked like a postcard tree's blazing orange, commuters moving with that hopeful energy you only find in airports early in the morning. James was always early. He'd been flying 2 decades, never late, never sloppy, because that's what his old man in Detroit drilled into him. You gotta be twice as good for half the recognition. Detroit wasn't an easy city when James was a kid. His dad, put in his years at Ford, told him to aim higher, and James did just that: years of flight school, military regional gigs, until finally he landed a spot at Sterling Airways. Even after all these years, he could almost feel his father's hand on his shoulder every time he laced up his shoes. Sarah Chun, his co-pilot, was new but sharp, young, Asian-American, ambitious, with that blend of nerves and drive James recognized from his own rookie days. The kind of pilot who double-checks the checklist and still asks if she missed anything. They made a good team, silent understanding, trust built flight by flight. Meanwhile, Margaret, let's be honest, she was an institution at Sterling. She'd seen the golden age of air travel fade, survived 3 decades of layoffs, policy changes, and enough passenger complaints to fill a novel. She ran a tight cabin, demanded respect, but these days her life felt hollow. Kids grown, her ex-husband lost to his own vices, calls from family awkward at best. That morning, she was still rattled from call with her daughter the night before, something about a wedding, about showing up, about being supportive. Margaret wasn't sure she knew how anymore. Boarding for Flight 447 was the usual chaos. Businessmen glued to laptops, families herding kids, young people too busy with their phones to care. But everyone noticed that Captain James had a presence, the kind you don't question, unless, well, you're looking for something to question. It should have been a routine hop to Chicago. Margaret greeted everyone with her signature half-smile, helping an old woman, Elena Washington, cane in hand, eyes sharp as ever, settle in. A couple rows back, a vet named David, traveling for a family wedding, took his seat with that quiet steadiness only old soldiers have. Near the front, a young reporter scribbled notes, lost in her world. No one could have guessed these strangers would all play their part before the day was over. At 8:18 a.m., as the doors closed, James caught ETA warning light on the pressurization panel. Not a full-blown emergency, but enough to keep them grounded. He called maintenance, announced the delay over the PA, and waited for the tech, Tom Bradley, to show up. Tom, who knew every inch of that plane, ran his checks, shook his head, said it's a faulty sensor. James had a choice: fly as is or wait for a new part. No contest. Change the sensor, he said, even though it meant another half hour on the ground. You could feel the mood shift. Business travelers started muttering. Someone shot Margaret a glare. And then came the first real jab. "Is your captain sure about what he's doing?" from Harold Peterson, the kind of frequent flyer who thinks a million miles makes him a pilot. Margaret answered professionally, but the seed was planted. Another passenger speculated maybe the captain was inexperienced, maybe new to this model. Margaret didn't like the feeling gnawing at her, but didn't say much. She found herself in the cockpit, tiptoeing around the real issue, suggesting to James that maybe, just maybe, they could speed things up. James kept his cool. Safety comes first. I stand by my call. Margaret left, frustrated, but still unsure why her faith was wavering. That's when Elena, the teacher, the one who'd seen the world change since the '60s, stopped Margaret. Would you be so quick to doubt him if he was a white man? She asked. Oof. That landed. Margaret denied it, of course. Who wants to admit a bias? But the question stuck with her, burrowed deep. Since her fixed, they finally took off. James flew as smooth as silk, made up some time in the air, but the gossip in the cabin wouldn't die. Harold got loud, saying he'd never seen such poor judgment. This time, Margaret stood her ground, defending James in front of everyone. Harold fumed, I'll be riding to the airline, and Margaret just nodded, heart pounding. After landing, Harold made good on his threat, walking off the plane like he'd accomplished something important. Elena squeezed Margaret's hand. Don't let him shake you. Doing the right thing always costs something. But the wheels of corporate justice were already turning. Back at Sterling HQ, Harold's complaint landed on Patricia's desk. She never bothered to talk to anyone else on the flight, just took Harold's word, called James in for a review about operational efficiency, called Margaret in to scold her about being unprofessional with passengers. Neither one backed down, so the airline did what it always does, push the blame down. James was warned. Margaret was fired. But James wasn't done. He called the big boss, Robert Sterling, explained everything, his record, the censor, the complaints, Margaret's firing. To his credit, Sterling listened, and for once, the story didn't end with a quiet cover-up. Sterling launched an internal review, found the pattern. Harold had filed complaint after complaint, always against minorities, always with the same language. In a tense boardroom, Sterling laid it all out. The bias, the unfair firings, the truth that professionalism had been sacrificed for passenger appeasement. He reinstated Margaret, banned Harold for life, retrained the managers, and made it clear safety and fairness come before convenience and prejudice. 6 months later, Margaret's back, a little wiser, a lot prouder. James walks through the terminal, head high, knowing his judgment is finally respected. Elena keeps on teaching, even if her classroom is just a grocery line or a neighbor's porch, planting seeds of courage wherever she goes. And the industry? Maybe it's starting to change, one hard lesson at a time. But the real question isn't what the company did, it's what you would do. When everyone's whispering, when standing up means standing, Alanito, you keep your head down, or do you speak? Let's get real. Has there ever been a time you had to pick between what's right and what's easy? How did you handle it? Drop your story below. Because if there's anything Flight 447 taught us, it's that the only way things get better is when regular people decide enough is enough.